spread of the Greek culture was known as Hellenism. Greece defeated the Medo-Persian Empire, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and he stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. This here is a map of the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great died at a young age. Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. This is a reference to Alexander the Great died at the age of 32, and as a result, his kingdom was divided among 4 of his generals. Daniel chapter 8, verse 8, Daniel chapter 8, verse 22. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And from one of these 4 kingdoms came one known as Antiochus Epiphanes, and he personifies what we call in the end of days the Antichrist and his actions. Daniel chapter 8, verse 9, and out of one of them came forth a little horn which waxed exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Here, what you see here is a coin where Antiochus IV is portrayed as being Zeus. Why is Antiochus being portrayed as Zeus? Well, you need to understand what Zeus represents in Greek culture. That was the preeminent god of the Greek culture who had the rule and the authority over all. Israel became the center of conflict between the Greek Seleucid and the Greek Ptolemy kingdoms. And out of one of them came forth a little horn which waxed exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. The Syrian area north of the Galilee was ruled by the Greek general Seleucid I. The area south of Israel and Egypt was ruled by the Greek general Ptolemy. And these were 2 of the powers of the 4 from the split up of the Grecian Empire. Israel lay in the middle between the struggle and fight between the Greek rulers of Syria and Egypt. An eventual Seleucid ruler known as Antiochus Epiphanes IV set out to destroy the Greek ruler in Egypt, and Israel became the battleground. And so we have here a chart of the reign of the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, and the Maccabees, where we could see the period of time where the things talked about in Daniel is being played out. Antiochus IV waged war against the Jews. Daniel chapter 8, verses 22 through 24. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding, dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And so some of the background of what happened at this time and the decrees of Antiochus are spelled out in the book of Maccabees, which is an extra biblical book, but it is valid for historical reasons. And so we're going to look at the historical things that are specified in the book of 1 Maccabees. We are not saying that 1 Maccabees should be regarded as Scripture because obviously it's not in our Bible. So Let's look at 1 Maccabees in chapter 1, verse 10, verses 20 and 21. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus named Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and he went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. Exactly what Daniel said. And he entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof, and the table of showbread and the pouring vessels and the vials of the censers of gold and the veil and the crown of the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold, the precious vessels. He also took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were. Daniel chapter 8 verse 25 tells us about Antiochus waging war against the Jews. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace he shall destroy many. Antiochus personifies the false Messiah in the end of days, and through peace, deception coming upon the whole earth. He will stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. It is recorded in 1 Maccabees how Antiochus deceived through peace, as was mentioned in the book of Daniel. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verses 29 through 31, it is written, And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute over the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude. And he spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. In Daniel chapter 8, verses 11 and 12, we're told that Antiochus IV stopped the daily sacrifice in the temple. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Antiochus IV stopped the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation, as is mentioned in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 54, 56, and 59. Now the 50th day of the month of Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and built an altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar which was upon the altar of God. The 25th day of Kislev has become to be the day of the Hanukkah celebration, because that's when things were dedicated back in the temple to the God of Israel after a war with Antiochus. Antiochus set up the abomination of desolation, as we're told in Daniel 11, verse 31. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that makes desolate. Here we have Antiochus IV erecting an altar of the god Zeus, the preeminent Greek god, in the temple in Jerusalem, and he sacrificed a pig upon it. Why a pig? Because this represents the essence of uncleanness as far as the Torah is concerned. Now, Yeshua, when he was asked about, tell us about the things of the end of days in Matthew chapter 24, which is commonly called the Olivet Discourse, he made reference to this historical event in the book of Daniel, which was done by Antiochus Epiphanes. Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand, then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. Now, Yeshua is talking about something in the future. He's talking about abomination of desolation, which is mentioned historically in the book of Daniel. And what happened there is a prophecy about the end of days. And the events of the abomination of desolation in the book of Daniel is understood today in the celebration of what we call Hanukkah. So therefore, there is a Hanukkah rebellion coming in the future. That's likened to what Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth did. Now, historically, what we're going to see from Maccabees is that those who rebelled against Antiochus Epiphanes, they fled into Judea. But first, let's look at the abomination of desolation. The rabbis as a whole consider that the expression, the abomination of desolation, refers to the desecration of the temple by the erection of a Zeus statue in its sacred precincts by Antiochus Epiphanes. Some rabbis, however, see it as an allusion to Manasseh, who, in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 7, set up a carved image. The expression found in Matthew 24, verse 15, and Mark 13, 14, the abomination of desolation, the context leaves no room for doubt as to what was intended by this expression, namely the transformation by Antiochus Epiphanes of the sacred temple at Jerusalem into a heathen one. In 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, we see that those who led the rebellion against Antiochus Epiphanes, which is Matthias and his 5 sons, who became known as the Maccabees, that when this abomination of desolation took place, they fled into Judea, into the mountains. So what Yeshua said to do has already been done. In those days arose Mattathias, and he had 5 sons, and it lists the name of his sons here. 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 6. And when he saw the blasphemies that was committed in Judea and Jerusalem, Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, "Whoever is zealous of the law and maintains the covenant, let him follow me." And so the PLO state and the efforts by the New World Order to govern and rule over the land of Israel and the acceptance of the nation of Israel by it will be regarded as an abomination, that those who believe in the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will have a choice to make whether they're going to stand for that covenant, just like what happened here. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they had in the city. So Antiochus Epiphanes made a statue of Zeus. Who or what does Zeus represent in Greek mythology? Zeus is the god who ensued himself control of all the gods of mythology. He was originally nothing more than a god who was just a bit more formidable than the others. His glorification as the God of gods came only after centuries of history, myth, and various traditions. Later in the development and the hierarchy among the gods, at the top of all the Greek gods was Zeus. Zeus appears as the image of appeasement, order, wisdom, and justice. That is the mindset of the New World Order, is to bring about appeasement, order, wisdom, and justice. Indeed, the rules that Zeus formulated for the gods in the heavens were also established in earthly societies. Henceforth, the kings governed the cities and the peoples. Everyone was answerable to Zeus. Everyone is answerable to the New World Order. That's what their goal and intent is. And the eagle represented Zeus. What's one of the symbols of the United States? The eagle. In Greek mythology, Zeus was married to Europa. It's from the Greek goddess Europa do we have the naming of the area of the world which we call Europe.